Howdy, Philly, and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at John chapter 4, verses 16 and 17. But first, you don't want to get too close to the screen unless you want the flu. And honestly, 1 out of 10 stars, I cannot recommend that. Here is a rubric, everything we're looking for as we go through this text. Let's go ahead and get started. Lege aute, hupage phoneson ton andra su, kai elthe en thade. Apokrithe he gune kai epen autoi, uk echo andra. Lege autoi te ho Jesus, kalos epas hoti andra uk echo. And there we have it. Very first word we've seen many times, don't really need to parse that. This we're used to seeing autoi with omega sub iota. This one is just the feminine form, a adjective using the first declension endings. So this is dative, singular, and feminine. No mark of subject, got a colon there. He says, historic present, to her. Direct quotes. Hoop age. Here we have a short e, a short epsilon off of this verb, and this is just to tell us that this is a second person singular off of the present stem active imperative. I'm going to do it right this time. Imperative, IMPV, yes, good. IMPV. Okay, so go up, go out, something along those lines. Phoneson, here we have Omicron nu as our ending off of phoneo. Here we have eta sigma right there telling us that this is not a present tense. This Omicron nu, it could be a, technically, depending on the type of aorist that this is, it could be a first person singular or third person plural. But since we have the eta sigma here, we know this is the wrong type of aorist for that. I want to say this is a second, but I'm always mixing up those two. Suffice it to say, Omicron nu off of the eta sigma addition to the stem is not an indication of indicative mood. Instead, this is another imperative. So another second person singular, this time aorist, and it is also active. MPV. So get up, go. Call ton andra. Here we have Omicron nu for an accusative singular. Andra, this is a third declension, so that alpha right there doesn't look like it should be an accusative, but it is. And it is masculine. So here's our direct object. Su, we've seen this before as a possessive. Omicron upsilon right there, of course, makes sense. So genitive singular owning andra. And then we have the end of the clause here, so we can go ahead and put this into English properly. Go call your, and this means man, however, the connotation in ancient Greek can also be that it's husband, and I think that is what is intended here, so I'll put man in parentheses. Oops. Oof. Yeah, flus are not good. Go call your husband. And elthe, here we have that epsilon again for the second person singular. However, we have this on the aorist stem in this case. And this one, this is of course the aorist stem that would use Omicron nu as a first singular or a third plural. Not that that really matters right now. Okay. And elthe enfade, and we've seen this one before. I don't remember if it was the last page or one of the pages before, but this it's just an adverb showing location, so it can mean thence as in away from, or hence as in towards here. And in this case, the context seems to indicate that it means and then come back here. Yeah, I think I'm even going to say back here. right, verse 17. Apokrithe gune. Here is our subject, nominative, singular, and feminine. And she appears to be doing this verb, theta eta. So I didn't think to look this one up because we have this one so often that I've basically been ignoring it. We parsed it all those times, and then I just moved on. And then I realized, as I was starting to record this video, we have a feminine subject. And then that means, where often we will see this is apokrithe, or is it apokrithes? I don't remember what it is. You'd think I would have seen it so many times, but then again, I've been ignoring it. So it could be a participle, but I don't think so. I think this is just the eta for the third person singular. It's thein, thes, they, I believe, is the singular. So that's how I'm going to treat this one. So a third singular aorist deponent indicative. The end quotes, woman replied, Kai, and a pen, epsilon nu, don't need to parse that, seen it enough times. Also don't need to parse this, said to Jesus. Negative echo, our omega right there for a first person singular off of the present stem. Active and indicative. I do not have andra, what we saw before as an accusative singular, so don't need to parse that. Again, I do not have husband. Period. Like a beginning of a new clause, so she is done speaking here. Seen that before, Oh, Jesus, here we have our subject. Jesus says to her, quote, kalos, omega sigma right there with the circumflex. This just tells us that this is a adverb. Though you will want to be careful, there are a number of verbs that take their nominative singular masculine participial ending as omega sigma, so keep that in mind. But this one is as the adjective with our adverbial ending right there. So it's modifying our verb, which is right here. A pas, alpha sigma right there is a second person singular, aorist tense, active and indicative. Okay, so you, hoti, introduces, quote, you said, and then kalos can mean, well, it's kind of hard to translate kalos sometimes. Back when I was the primary translation work that I did for class was Attic. Kalos would have been, probably we translated as noble or beautiful, but with Koine it's usually going to be good. So I think maybe well, you have said well, you said well. Nobly, I don't think so. Beautifully, no. That's more of an Attic translation. Hoti, that, you said well, that. Andra uk echo, just a repetition of that. Interesting change in order though. So Jesus is putting the emphasis on the husband right here since it is the first, but no need to parse any of that. I do not have husband. Now, there's not really a good way to show the emphasis that Jesus is putting here in English. It could be husband, I do not have. But that's awkward in English. So I don't know that there's a good way to demonstrate what the Greek is doing here. I don't know. Well, that is as far as we're going to go today. So let's take a look at it in its own context and then in greater context from verse 7. He says to her, go call your husband. And I put two ands. And come back here. The woman replied and said to him, I do not have husband. Jesus says to her, You said well that I do not have husband. And that's as far as that goes from verse 7 then. A woman comes from Samaria to draw water. Jesus says to her, Give to me to drink, for his disciples had gone into the city in order to buy victuals. She says therefore to him, the woman, the Samaritan one, How do you, being a Jew, ask from me to drink, although I am a Samaritan woman? For Jews do not have dealings with Samaritans. Jesus answered and said to her, If you had... What? Always surprises me when I miss things like this. If you had known the gift of the God and who it is, the one saying to you, Give to me to drink, you would ask him, and he would give to you water, living water. The woman says to him, Lord, you do not indeed have a bucket, and the well is deep. From where, therefore, do you have the water, the living? Surely you are not greater than our father Jacob, who gave to us the well, and he drank from it, and his sons and his domesticated animals. Jesus answered and said to her, Everyone who drinks from this water will thirst again. But whoever drinks from the water which I myself will give to him will by no means thirst forever. But the water which I will give to him will be in him a spring of welling up water for life eternal. The woman says to him, Lord, give this water to me in order that I may not thirst and not pass through hither to draw. He says to her, Go call your husband and come back here. The woman replied and said to him, I do not have a husband. Jesus says to her, You said well that I do not have a husband. And there we have it. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you. I hope you don't get my cold or flu, whatever it is. Farewell.
What? You're still awake? Why are you still here then? You should be reading a book. Or if not reading, you should watch one of these other videos. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment. See you next week.